broadcast of It's Time with Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. Here's Reverend Martin.
All right, thank you, Dr. Blackwell. Let me say Hotep Baragani to my Africana Studies colleagues and contemporaries. And let me hasten to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time you may be viewing this broadcast, but certainly never a good night and never ever goodbye, because I find goodbyes traumatizing. I said I personally find goodbyes traumatizing. My name is the Reverend Nathaniel W. Martin. I'm the pastor of the New Life Institutional Baptist Church here in the city of Los Angeles, and we're located at 8916 South Main Street. We're being hosted by our sister church, the Shiloh Missionary Christian Church, in case you look for the address on Google and Shiloh comes up. Yes, that's us. And Shiloh is pastored by my good friend, the Reverend Dr. Della F. Holliness. And we are worshiping together, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, and one service. All right? Thank you so much. This offering that you're viewing is a social justice offering, and we try to address the issues, current issues. We don't try to put our heads in the sand or close our eyes or shut our mouths or put our hands over our ears, as a lot of people across the nation are doing. But we find it best to confront the issues head on. And the book of Proverbs says, righteousness exalteth a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. And we're seeing that now in our nation as we struggle, and as a lot of people are contorting their souls and their speech, like Nikki Haley, who cannot admit that this was a racist country from its inception. This country had slavery. It was built on slavery. The reason why it was conceived was so that the rich could have slaves. Who wouldn't come to a nation where you get free labor, slave labor, and you get free land, land given to you by the government, and then you bring in a crop, then you are set for life. And so that's what this nation was built on. I was looking at a YouTube debate between Breonna Gray and another gentleman, I think his name was Kirk. And he held that there was no structural racism, and then she was kind of taken aback by that. But take a look at the Constitution. I think about 36 signers of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence were slaveholders. And as high as you want to elevate Thomas Jefferson, he was a slave owner and a slave holder, and he dealt in the labor of black bodies, the free labor of black bodies. And yes, he wrote eloquently, but he lived, shall we say, devilishly. He was quite profligate and quite hypocritical in the main. And so, coming out of slavery, of course, the one glowing time, as the late W.B. Du Bois placed it, were those years of Reconstruction, when it looked like the nation was going to turn the page and go in the right direction, but it didn't. Those who were licking their wounds from the losses of the Civil War, the losses of their slave property, the losses of fortune, was still plotting to get those fortunes back. And when he began to, after the election of 1877, when Rutherford B. Hayes made a deal with the Southern Democrats, that he would pull all of the remaining soldiers out of the South and would let the South do as they would with the former descendants of the former slaves, or the formerly enslaved, who a lot of them were still alive in 1877. And from then on, it was downhill. The black codes and the Jim Crow signs and all of that began to appear. And there was work that they called white work, which was good work. And then there was work which they call, they being the white people, called Negro work, because when you structure something, you fix it like you want it. And so Negroes were only allowed to work at certain jobs and with extremely low pay. And you're going to have to do a lot of sidestepping to say that that was not structural racism, and that this was not a racist nation. And I noticed Miss Haley has trouble remembering her narrative when they asked her the question about, the first question they asked her was about, was the Republican Party a racist party? And she flipped it from that, the reporter originally asked, to talking about the country. Well, he didn't ask about the country, he asked about the Republican Party, which she's a member. And the answer in both cases is yes, because the Republican Party that she's now part of is not the Republican Party of Abraham Lincoln. It's a hybrid. It's a apostate Republican Party. And I'm sure Abe Lincoln wouldn't even recognize this Republican Party. Remember, it was under the Republican administration that you had the abolition movement for slavery and the successful completion of the Civil War, which freed the slave. And like I said, the country was on the road to a brighter future until the retrogrades in the nation assumed power, and then you had the rise of the KKK, which was at that time far more powerful than it has ever been since. Because I think at one time, I think by the time of Woodrow Wilson, who assumed office in 1914, there were millions of Ku Klux Klan people marching on the streets of Washington, D.C. So, and what were they marching for? They were marching to push black people back, whatever the designation, whether it was colored or Negro or the other. They didn't want you to succeed, and they did not want you in their social structures. And so that has been the way it has been, and it affected medical care, because white doctors would not treat black patients. White nurses would never touch a black man, touch black skin. Oh no! And so if you got an institution that's like the medical or healthcare situation, which everybody needs, but it is segregated and it's discriminated, then yes, you have set up a system of white supremacy. And of course, it wasn't limited to the United States. It was spread all over the world. The British and the French and the Belgians and the Portuguese and the Swedes and the Dutch and whatever European nations I'm leaving out, all of them were complicit in that racism. I said all of that to get to the problem that Joe Biden is having at this time. He is being pursued by and dogged by the black pastors who called for a ceasefire in Gaza. And Joe Biden is a ardent supporter of Israel, as he has said over and over. And you saw his bear hug and embrace of Netanyahu when he got off of the plane there in Israel. Two old men embracing. And Netanyahu, of course, who was already in trouble in his country. And actually, the Palestinian uprising was a blessing for him, because it took the eye of the people, of the public, off of him and put it on the Hamas at this time. I'm sure Hamas didn't calculate that this is what was going to be happening, but that's what happens when there is an uprising. And why was there an uprising? Because that for 76 years, the Jews have had their foot on the necks of the Palestinians. You have your foot on the man's neck, but the camera is only showing you your smiling visage up here. Then quite nicely, you are able to put forward a facade that you are congenial and amiable and friendly and loving, but the Palestinians say not so. The treatment, persecution belies that type of sentiment or presentiment. And so there was an uprising, and which didn't start on October 7th. It had been building, like I said, because when the Jews evacuated Gaza and allowed the Palestinians to come in to Gaza, one of the things that they didn't put on the television screen was that the Jews control the electricity, the Jews control the water, and the Jews control all of the services that have to go, that the Palestinians need. So that's an occupation. And it was not just in Gaza, but they also had an occupation in the West Bank. In the West Bank, the settlers, soldier settlers, the colonial settlers were actually driving out the inhabitants of the West Bank and seizing their property. Like all of us, I thought that Israel, the Jews, couldn't do no wrong, but of course the Bible said that they did wrong. That's why he pushed them out. God kicked them out of the promised land. But what I'm saying is that for some reason, naively, I considered all the Jews to be sacrosanct and holy and devout and orthodox and all of that. But in reality, when you begin to study the actual history of that land and how they got that land and how they drove out the original inhabitants in what they call the Nakba, and that was when the Jews began to seize the land and drive those people out. The people call that a Nakba, which means the Holocaust in their language, or the nightmare. And however you define it, they were driven out of their land. I think 700,000 people were displaced. And in the Russia-Ukraine war, every time the Russians drove the Ukrainians out of Crimea or whatever other town that the Russians were possessing, then Joe Biden immediately called the Russians war criminals and said that was a genocide, and because you're not supposed to forcefully displace or ethnically cleanse any group of people. And so if it was a war crime when the Russians did it, then it must be a war crime when the Israelis do it. So that's the beginning of the cognitive dissonance that Biden was very comfortable labeling the Russians genocide in Ukraine, but he has no opinion when the Israelis bomb hospitals, bomb universities, bomb schools, bomb refugee camps, tell the people to get out of the north here and go down to the Rafah Gate, and then bomb down there where you ask them to go. But the U.S. president remains mute. And so it's like you coming up on a woman being raped, but then you go the other way. You saw something was wrong, and you knew you should have said something about it, or at the least went and told the authorities or the police about it. But no, you went on your way. And so in the law here in the United States, you are just as guilty as the people doing the rape, because you saw it and said nothing. And there have been cases of that, where see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, we call it. And that's just not how life is supposed to be. The Reverend Dr. Freddie Haynes, who is now the president of Operation Push, he replaced Dr. Reverend Jesse Jackson, who is way up in age now and much afflicted, and we send him good wishes and blessings. Freddie Haynes said that the response was disproportionate to the offense. And let me see, Bishop Jamal Bryant says, I think Mr. Biden threatens his own success. That's what he said. And he goes on to say that the Democrats have seemed to be on cruise control and feel like black people will come around. They'll be forgiving and they'll go along with us. I think that the ante is going to really elevate itself. All right. And let's see. Bishop Reginald T. Jackson, Bishop of the AMEs in Georgia, says when you hear the president say, redeem the soul of America, well, this is a stain. This is a scar on the soul of America. There's something about this that becomes hypocritical. And that's in Michigan, where but it's all across the nation. Like I said, from Bishop Bryant has taken over Operation Push in Chicago, and he's still pastoring that big church down there in Dallas. And Bishop Reginald Jackson is leading over 500 churches on the AME faith there in the state of Georgia. And he says that there's something hypocritical about the president talking about saving the soul of America, which is a platitude or a cliche, and then engaging in all of this genocide. I mean, we'll call it what the International Court of Justice called it. And remember, genocide, one of the basic ones which caught my attention, that genocide is deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. And that has been practiced on us here in America. I'm talking about us as black people now. And so quite naturally we can identify with the suffering and the persecution that we see being visited upon the Palestinians. Not to excuse what they did, but to recognize the context in which it was done. And if you had somebody's foot on your neck for 76 years, you might rise up just like Nat Turner. While I'm at that point, happy Black History Month. This is the second day of Black History Month. Black History Month was started by Dr. Carter G. Woodson. Originally was Black History Week, and he started it so that students could learn or would learn not only just something to to say at the immediate program, but they will continue to look at the contributions in all areas and disciplines, not just limited to politics, in which black people had made such a contribution. I was looking at a YouTube of Misty Copeland, who was the principal dancer in the American Ballet Theater there in New York, and she was remarking how that she didn't know about there were other black women that were before her until she just happened to be looking at an old movie, and there she saw Miss Raven Wilkerson, and come to find out that Miss Raven Wilkerson was following Misty Copeland's career and only lived a few blocks from where she was. So quite naturally, long story short, she was able to meet Miss Raven Wilkerson, and Miss Raven Wilkerson recently passed away. But that is the value of your history. And there were, as they say, there were other black people who wanted to do the ballet. And I think that we do our little young people an injustice. We got them dancing up there, call themselves praise dancing, which I'm not into all of that. But if you're going to have them praise dancing, then let them see the ballet. You might have a prodigy, or they might be able to pick that up and go forward with it. Just like Misty Copeland. She was 13 years old, which is late for somebody to start learning ballet, but then she found that she was good at it, and it feels something in her soul or her spirit, as she said. She felt like it was a part of her, and she was able to go to be the so good at it, in other words, that they had never had a black principal ballet dancer in the American Ballet Theater. And but in 2015, she was elevated to that position. Hats off to Misty Copeland. So in every field, in every area, our people have sought to make contribution. Almost bring a tear to your eye when you hear her mentor, Miss Raven Wilkerson, say that when she was dancing with this ballet company, and they traveled all over the world, but when they went down to Montgomery, Alabama in 1955, that the Ku Klux Klan came up on the stage to try to find out who is this Negro or colored person or the other, the N-word, which is what they use. Lord have mercy. And she finally had to quit that company and go overseas to, of all places, Amsterdam, and dance with the Dutch Ballet Theater, and had a fabulous career over there. But we didn't know about it over here because it was erased. It's not in the book. It's not in the book. And that's the tragedy of letting other people tell your story. And so Misty Copeland has taken it upon herself to gather the material, the anthology, the collections of all of the black ballet dancers, people who have danced ballet. And I never followed ballet myself. Quite naturally, I thought it was, something that it just didn't interest me. But when I did go see the Dance Theater of Harlem, I was entranced and enthused and became admirer of ballet. Not that I follow ballet, I don't have that kind of money. But those that do, that is a fabulous experience to see the people. I loved when Alvin Ailey's Dance Theater of Harlem came to Pasadena, and I'm going to go see them again because I enjoyed the Firebird and all of that. Now I don't know if I could just watch it like they watch it, but it's a beautiful thing to see. To our point, however, Mr. Biden is going to have to really get busy. Got 5 minutes? All right, 5 minutes, y'all. And shore up the following among the black people, because you just can't go along to get along. You got to call it what it is. If it's a crime in Ukraine, then it's a crime in Gaza, in Israel. And if it's a Palestinian doing it, it's a crime. And if it's a Jewish person that's doing it, it is still a crime. And I don't know how you're going to say that you got a democracy in Israel, and the only people that are able to enjoy the democracy are of one religion. We have a separation of church and state for that very reason. And that Israel is engaging in apartheid. And as Norman Finkelstein wrote a book, he said, knowing too much. We now know that Israel is not the bright, shining city on a hill, and that they are not the peculiar people of God that we were taught in the scriptures. And so it's about time that we did what Abraham Lincoln said during the Civil War. We must disenthrall ourselves, and then we shall save our country. If we want to cleanse our conscience, and if we want to save our country here in the United States, then we're going to have to acknowledge the truth, speak the truth. Was that David Ruffin? No, not David Ruffin. One of the Ruffin boys down there in Louisiana. Aaron Neville wrote that song called Tell It Like It Is. Yes, we're going to have to go back to telling it like it is, and stop the lying, and stop the, I don't see no evil, I don't hear no evil, and I ain't going to speak no evil. You see and you hear, and you must report. As I'm closing, reporting, hats off to Mr. Joe Madison, who was what they call the Black Eagle. He started being a reporter in back in the 1980s, and he was on the story of the Iran-Contra story that Gary Webb discovered, and found out that the CIA was funneling and smuggling crack cocaine into the black community. Naomi Klein wrote about it in her book, but we didn't believe it. But it came out that it was just what Joe Madison and Gary Webb were saying. And when Joe Madison pushed Congressman Maxine Waters to have a hearing in Los Angeles that with Mr. Deutsch at that time was the CIA director, he swore on a stack of Bibles that the CIA wouldn't do it to citizens like that, and turned around the very next year and issued a report that itemized everything he said he wasn't doing. So Mr. Joe Madison was in that crowd of reporters, black reporters, who sought to bring the light on the Iran-Contra drug deal that was Ronald Reagan's workaround. The Congress had told him not to fund the Contras, but he went around behind their back and worked with the CIA to funnel money, to funnel drugs into California and actually all over the country. And in response, they were able to buy the arms and give to the Contras. And so that's how you see what has been going on. And so don't let nobody tell you anything about how good we are. Finally, if you're working on a job and you are not getting paid right, if you're working on a job and the people don't want to pay you, take my advice. Don't waste your opportunities. Don't waste your life. If they don't want to pay you, don't work for them. Thank you, Doc. We out of here. Love you. Keep the faith, keep the faith, keep the faith.